The next step from after adding your columns is beginning to add heights to them. Of course, doesn't look like anything because we really want to start really creating a little bit of that design. This is where you would take that ruler to paper, that a virtual ruler to those pixels, and start assigning heights to them. So what we're going to do is I'm just going to do a quick example. We're going to add some really quick heights to these, and we're going to start adding a little bit more depth to the page vertically. Next step after this will be adding width, but really the first one is beginning to work on heights. You notice I am not going to touch any of the HTML. I'm going to keep that exactly the same, and I'm going to do my heavy lifting here in my style sheet. Again, the most work that I want to do, I'm going to do on the style sheet. I'm going to do a lot of the editing here. You notice in the style sheet that we had and in the CSS, we did a lot of the fonts and things that we had. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in here and say, hey, I'm going to, in our contact bar, I'm going to add a new line, and I'm going to say, what if I had this enough to maybe 20 pixels high? So I'm going to use the code height, and I'm going to add 20 pixels. I come back, I reload the page, and there's now 20 pixels high. Really cool. This is something that I can copy and paste, but again, just to annoy everyone, I'm just going to type in height over and over again because this is one of my favorite techniques to use. So let's use 60 pixels high. I reload the page. Oh wow, that's starting to look like a place where I can put a logo in there. I've got a link bar. Maybe we'll put that link bar to something pretty cool like, I don't know, let's do 40 pixels. Let's reload the page. That looks pretty cool. Maybe a little too big. How about we say 20 pixels too? Let's not get too crazy. Let's hit right. There's the left column and the right column. We're going to get back to those soon. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a little bit of height just so that I can see my columns. And I'm going to call them about 200 pixels each. Again, we're not talking about putting things side by side yet. All we're doing is adding some height. The next step after this is going to be maybe my 40 pixel footer. And when I reload the page, now you notice it starts looking like zones that I can work on. The new current trend in creating websites is actually creating bands and rows of content. The prior trend before that was making columns left and right. It's what people refer to lovingly as the inverted L, which was you had a link or a header, and then you had a bottom column to the left. So what we're going to do is we're going to play with that idea, and we're also going to start creating columns, real actual life columns. But for right now, the power of the height is begin to give ourselves depth. And the depth is that we can begin to fill it in. Again, right, stylistically, if we had the content in there that was 200 pixels, the div is going to actually expand in height to whatever I have in there. But let's say visual-wise, I wanted to float a piece of text like the word left text into the column and into this row. This is where I'm going to use the pixels to create that height. Again, a lot of power there. Really simple to define. All we're really doing is just adding a height tag. We can also look at using percentages as well in case I wanted to play with. In this case, depending on the design style, I'm going to use heights as well. The problem with percentages is it's based on the height of the browser. So a lot of times things kind of begin to fall off the record or fall off the table because, you know, what if my browser is squished up to here? I'm never going to see it. Versus in this case, if my browser is closed, the heights still remain because the page content and my CSS is telling the page how high it needs to be. So it's one of the things to think about from a stylistic choice.